We're on the edge of a brand new wave of intelligence. I'm not just talking about AI that's good at predicting the next word in a sentence. We're talking about something that can actually reason, plan, and, well, understand. We're talking about Kimi K2 Thinking from Moonshot AI. So today, we're going to explore what makes Kimi K2 so different. We'll kick things off by looking at the big problem it's trying to solve. Then we'll unpack how it all works, check out some pretty impressive numbers, and finally, chat about what this means for all of us.
All right, so to really get what Kimi K2 is all about, we've got to start with a huge challenge that even the top-tier AI models are still wrestling with today. Look, we've all seen how amazing large language models are. They can write, they can summarize, it's incredible stuff. But what happens when you give them a really complex problem? Something that takes multiple steps. Imagine asking one to plan a multi-city trip on a tight budget and actually book the real flights and hotels. They often stumble. They're fantastic at whipping up an itinerary, but not so great at actually executing the plan. And that is the reasoning gap.
So, to bridge that gap, Moonshot AI is doing something pretty smart. They're not positioning Kimi K2 as just another language model. Nope. They're calling it an entirely new kind of AI, a thinking agent.
The key phrase here is autonomously. This thing is built from the ground up to plan, to act, and to reason its way to a solution all on its own. So you should think of it less like a fancy search engine and more like a digital researcher or an engineer that can just get to work on a problem for you.
And this slide just illustrates that difference perfectly. On the left, you've got your traditional language model. It's basically a super sophisticated pattern matcher. But on the right, the thinking agent is a genuine problem solver. It's a huge shift from just predicting text to actively building an answer through a logical, step-by-step process.
So, that's the what. It's a problem solver, not just a text predictor. But how does it actually do it? Let's take a peek under the hood at this agentic thinking engine.
Now this is where things get really, really impressive. Kimi K2 can carry out between 200 and 300 actions in a row, all by itself. We're talking searching the web, running code, analyzing data, without a human needing to step in. It's this incredible autonomy that lets it do what's called long-horizon planning, tackling those monster problems that need hundreds of steps to solve.
And this is its core loop. It's this continuous, adaptive cycle that lets it handle some incredibly vague and tricky tasks. It starts by just thinking, breaking the problem down. Then it goes out and searches for information, analyzes what it found, and then executes a task. And it just keeps repeating this process, tweaking its approach with every loop until it finally hits the goal.
Okay, these are some pretty bold claims, right? But the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. Or in this case, the performance data. So let's see how Kimi K2 actually stacks up against the competition on some of the toughest benchmarks out there.
So first up is Browse Comp, and just so you know, this is not a simple quiz. This is a tough-as-nails benchmark that tests an AI's ability to go out on the messy, real-world internet, find information, and make sense of it. And look at that score. Kimi K2 gets an incredible 60.2%. That is more than double the performance of the human baseline. It is literally better at this complex task than the humans who made the test. Wild.
Then we've got this one, with the slightly terrifying name, Humanity's Last Exam. It's designed to push an AI's reasoning and its ability to use digital tools to the absolute limit. And again, Kimi K2 comes out on top, outperforming some of the biggest names in the game from giants like OpenAI and Anthropic. So here's the data all laid out. As you can see, Kimi K2 is setting new records in reasoning and search. And hey, while it might not be number one in every single category, it's still extremely competitive in coding. For example, the overall performance here paints a really clear picture. This is a seriously powerful and well-rounded thinking agent.
So, what does this level of performance actually unlock for us? What can you do with an AI that can reason this well? Let's talk about what this means for developers, researchers, and creators in the real world.
This is really where those benchmark scores become game-changing capabilities. For a coder, it's the difference between asking for a little snippet of code and asking it to build a whole functional prototype of your app idea. For a researcher, it means you can ask a super vague question like, hey, what's the latest in quantum computing for drug discovery? And get back a fully researched, verified summary. It just fundamentally changes the scale and complexity of the tasks you can hand over to an AI.
Which brings us to the bigger picture, because this isn't just another small update. This really feels like an evolutionary leap, one that's pointing toward a whole new era of what AI can even be.
This idea of a thoughtful AI is so important. As Moonshot AI puts it themselves, it's about creating stories and scripts that feel more, well, human, emotional, and purposeful. It's a move away from just processing data to actually understanding nuance, and maybe even creativity.
You know, this takes us way past just simple information lookup. We're moving into a future where AI can be a real partner in solving some of our most complex challenges, which really just leaves us with one profound question. With a tool that can truly reason, what kind of future are we going to choose to build?